Welcome to another episode of the Aiming Five Hole Podcast, Stanley Cup edition. How you doing, Ryan?
Phil, I'm doing well. I'm amazed you're awake. You just got back from a transcontinental flight.
Yeah,
You're probably feeling pretty wiped, so
little jet
we'll
lag,
do
but it's all good. I'm excited about this episode, and wow, what a difference
a
three
day
days and
makes.
3 days make between game two and three. You just a completely different Oilers team showed up. Um, and had no answers for the Florida Panthers
Yeah.
last
The
night.
first two games were two of the best games I've seen all season. They were absolutely made, both in overtime, both won on, solid goals, both,
So much fun to
honestly,
watch. So much
so much
fun to
fun to
watch.
watch. I mean, like you rarely hear commentators talk in the middle of the game about how much of a fun game it is to watch. Like they were really enjoying it. And obviously there have been some plays made that are absolutely, I mean, the the power play goal from McDavid to Draisaitl with
Insane.
the little drag move in the middle. I mean, you sent me a video of taken from a fan's perspective in slow motion. I mean, it was poetry in motion.
Oh, it's just insane what he does. Again, we've said it all along. It's just what he's doing on skates. It's just, and at that speed that he skates at and does things at it, that play was special. You don't see too many plays like that.
Yeah,
That's just next level talent. And you know, last year, before we get into, yeah, we might as well talk about it. Last year, after 3 games, Oilers were down 3-0.
yeah.
And McDavid had a bit of a tirade in the change room after the game about exploding in the players and saying, this isn't good enough. This is crazy. After last night's game, uh, he's got to be good. I wouldn't want to know what the locker room speech was like because he can't be happy about the complete no-show that they did last night. 5-on-5 last night. They were awful.
They were caved in from every respected game. They had a couple of good power plays that they didn't score on in the first period, which is something we should get to in a bit because that's going to be a pretty fundamental factor going forward for the rest of the series. But after how well they played in games 1 and 2, and it easily could have been 2-0 Edmonton, but for the
Easy.
heroics of Bobrovsky, um, they came into Florida and they looked completely unprepared, which is really surprising to me. They just they didn't look like they were ready to be there. And then more importantly,
It's almost like the extra day off was a
hurt them.
deterrent.
Yeah. Well, the thing that blew my mind more than anything else was that they lost their composure so quickly, and never got
Yep.
it back. Like you figure okay, they go out after in the first intermission, they were down, 2-0. They were very fortunate to be down 2-0, given the number of penalties seven, between the two teams, there were
Yeah.
7 power plays in the first period. And they they came out in the second period and looked worse. Somehow they looked worse. Uh and then the third period was just a disaster. I mean, you have to show pushback, but pushback is not hitting after the whistle. Pushback is showing that you can play a physical, clean game and turn the momentum around and pot a couple of goals to finish the game and remind Florida that you're coming back for game 4 and you've got your game going. Instead, it was all of this cheap penalties, lazy penalties, hitting after the whistle. Jake Wallman was, God knows what he was doing, trying to get under Matthew Tkachuk's skin. It was just clear that Tkachuk was under his skin. And Gadjevich was in everybody's head all night long. Bennett was in everybody's head all night long. Honestly, Edmonton, this is going to be an incredibly huge test of McDavid and Chuck Knobloch's leadership because they are going to have to find a way to basically find their Zen place, play an aggressive, very aggressive form of hockey, but from a very calm mindset. And they've got to find a way of focusing on their jobs and not letting the Florida Panthers get under their skin, which apparently is a little bit of a problem for them right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like last year, after the 3 games and even the whole series, Edmonton never lost their cool. I don't remember them losing their cool the way they did this year in game three. They never got to that place where they forgot about playing hockey and they were just out there gooning and doing dumb things and showing the Panthers that they were getting to them. Last night was disturbing how they lost and what to your point, what their reaction was about losing. Like they played so good in game one and two at times. There was times still in game one and two where they're hemmed in their own zone. They're having trouble getting it up the boards. Florida Panthers are playing such a good game up the boards. They're mucking it up on the boards,
They're
keeping them
owning the
in.
boards.
Yeah, and I think I wrote to you in game two, there was I think it was the second period where they came out and Bouchard had those two early chances or two or three early chances in game
Didn't
two,
bury him.
didn't bury them, and that cost them. Like that ended up costing them that game, and they haven't seemingly recovered from that point in terms of being able to really bury on their chances. Even last night, Ryan Nugent Hopkins had some chances. Connor Brown had a few chances. Even McDavid had a few chances. They just couldn't finish. Bobrovsky played really well, made big saves. I think that's another big Gervins. Skinner got pulled last night. Um, he wasn't great, but he wasn't that bad. There's a few times where he overplayed. I think Henrik had Lundqvist had some great commentary during the intermissions that he was overplaying the puck a little bit, getting too far forward and not playing as east to west as he normally
Hmm.
does, and playing back in his net. He was getting a little too aggressive and overplaying stuff, but he's got to be better. The whole team's got to be better. And then
Yeah,
they
the
can't give
D
up,
played a horrid game.
yeah, and they can't give up breakaways the way they're giving up at the moment. So, the saving grace for them is Skinner's after after losses this year. He's 2-0 with a couple of shutouts. So, they we'll see what it comes. Will they? Who do you play in game four? Do you play Skinner or do you go to Picard? Pickard, Picard, Pickard.
I was going to let that slide because you're so jet lagged. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I think uh, there are a lot of reasons to think that once things go south for Skinner and his head gets in his own way, you go to Pickard and you see what he's got. He played so well. He saved their bacon in the first round, right? Like he single-handedly turned the series around against the Kings.
Right.
So maybe you put him in. On the other hand, Skinner got you to 7 games last year against his team. He's had some unbelievable game saving performances this year since he's been back. Maybe you go ahead and
And he's got two shutouts after losses
yeah, maybe
this
you
year.
stick
So
with him and it's a short leash because I look, they went down 3-0 last year and came back to force a game seven. I feel like the way last night went, if they have a similar performance at all in game four, it's over.
yeah, they don't want to
Like,
get down 3-1 this year. To your point, I think it'll be over after that. It needs to go back to Edmonton 2-2. They need to
yeah,
win game four.
they need a mental reset, and going home 2-2 is going to give them that.
Yeah, and I think we've seen in this playoffs the resilience of the Edmonton Oilers. They looked terrible against LA in the first two games. There's at other times during the playoffs, they've looked awful and they've bounced back, and all of a sudden a new team shows up
Yeah.
after bad losses. So even last year in the Cup final, they lost a couple of bad games, and they bounced back. So I think this team shows a lot of resilience. I think I sent you a stat. Uh, Last night too is that I'm just trying to find it now that I can't find it. The every team the last teams to reach the Stanley Cup final after losing the first two games of the playoffs are undefeated since 1992.
I know that's a pretty odd stat.
So they've
So in
gone
other
on to
words,
win the
so
cup.
so just to put it a little bit differently, teams that have lost their first 2 games but somehow turned it around and made it to the Stanley Cup Finals have won the Stanley Cup Final every single time.
Since 1992, and that's one,
Since
two,
1992.
three, four, five, six, 7 times. They're the eighth team, and there's some, yeah, there's all different teams. Eighth team to make the final after losing the first two games. The previous seven have all won the cup.
Wow, that's eight out of wow, like 33. That's a higher number. Like 25% of the time, the
Yeah,
Stanley Cup winner is
it's
it
crazy.
starts the playoffs 0 and 2.
It's a crazy thing. The other stat that's sort of wild is that under Paul Maurice, the Panthers are now 31 and 1 when leading after the first or second period.
Yeah, well, the loss was game one.
Game one was the only loss that they have after leading after a first and second period in the Stanley Cup
Yeah,
final.
and game two was almost the second
Oh,
time,
sorry, in
right?
the period, in the playoffs.
In the
That's just the
third period,
playoffs.
in the
That's the
playoffs.
playoffs. That's just in the playoffs the last under Paul
Yeah,
Maurice, which is incredible. Again, like they're a team that if you get down, they don't give it up. They're
yeah.
playing such great defense. I think the other thing in this series that's so wild,
It's
last
also
night,
Bob related, right? That's also
yeah,
Bob related.
you got the two oldest guys in the playoffs that are outperforming, Marchand and Perry are just unbelievable. Perry has Edmonton's last two goals. At one point last night, after when the score was tied 1-1, no, it was 2-1. The score was 2-1. Um, um, Between Perry and Marchand, they had scored five of the previous six goals.
Yeah, it's they're both playing great. I mean, Perry's also, been a little slow to react to a couple of McDavid passes that would have gotten him additional goals.
Yeah,
But he's playing that playoff way. He's right where he's supposed to be, which is in front of the net. Marchand, on the other hand, is like playing like a 25-year-old version of himself.
yeah.
Remember all
No,
those criticisms I was laying on him in the series against the Leafs, where he just wasn't showing the same um, or I think actually he was doing it against the Leafs. I think I was criticizing him before the playoffs started. Now that I think about it, but he wasn't showing that same kind of puck control, zone entry ability that he's so famous for. And all of a sudden, like this series, especially, he's got the puck on a string as he's coming into the zone. He's able to hold it for an extra 2 seconds, finding trailers, finding guys deep. Like he's an offensive threat aside from scoring goals, a dangerous player in a way that I haven't seen all season long. And more. I'm sure you'll say more power to him, especially if he signs with the Leafs in the off season.
I don't think I think
Um, but he's been an invaluable member of this team, and again, all credit to Bill Zito. What an acquisition he was.
well, he and
Um,
Seth Jones, because Seth Jones is playing phenomenal hockey as well. Marchand has now 15 points in his 22 Stanley Cup final games with 47 shots on net. To your point, it's just he rises to the big occasions, and after a mediocre season, he's come to the Florida Panthers, and he's on a better team than he was in Boston now. But we've said this before. He's fit in like a glove. Like he's just the fit has been so good, and Panthers are just four lines deep of talent, and every line is playing well. Verhage all of a sudden has played well. Bennett is out of his mind right now. Another two
yeah,
goals last night, leading scoring. And actually, I would say at this point, Florida Panthers wins. Bennett is easily the MVP in my mind at this point. He's doing everything. He's being a
yeah,
pest. He's being playing offense. He's playing defense. He's doing everything.
yeah,
It's incredible. I thought though, I think it was the first period, he should have had a penalty last night against Draisaitl. He hooked Draisaitl pretty bad going through a neutral zone, and
yes.
you
I
know,
saw that text from you.
yeah, it was a little crazy. Like, and again, we've talked about this, Peg. This is not a rant against the refs because it's the Oilers are lost that game. We've said this from the beginning. You can go look back and listen to our podcast. The refing in this playoff has been so inconsistent, so poor that
Yeah,
I'm not sure what a penalty is anymore. And I think
yeah,
it's a real problem. Refing in the NHL is difficult. But and we all have said this before, even though the NHL says a penalty in the regular season is a penalty in the playoffs. It's just not true when you watch the
yeah.
games. And the style of play changes and guys are getting away with things that you shouldn't get away with, and it goes both ways. It's not just in Edmonton tonight.
Yeah.
I've not enjoyed the
I think
refing
they
this
could have
year.
gotten on top of that stuff last
Yeah.
night a little bit sooner. The end of the game wouldn't have been as ugly and frankly unpleasant to watch
Oh, it was
if the refs
terrible.
had gotten control of it at the beginning of the third period.
Yeah, it was a terrible, terrible game to watch in the end. Like it was just
Yeah.
not as entertaining as the first two games. The first two games were so entertaining, and then to get complete dud out of Edmonton, and then the style of play last night, it wasn't fun. I'm sure if you're a
Yeah.
Panther fan, you're loving the style of play
Yeah.
because they're playing the way they need to play, grinding it down, really taking away the center of the ice on the Oilers and McDavid. They've got to find a way to take control back here
Yeah.
and
So
finish strong.
do they put McDavid and Draisaitl back together for game four?
I think there's every game they've started apart and then come together at different occasions. I like the fact that you sort of unbalanced, right? You don't necessarily start them together, or you start them together, but then there's
I
times
think
where they're
last night they
pulled
played
apart.
most of the I think last night they played most of the game together.
Yeah, it's because they were chasing the game, right? Because they
Yeah.
got behind. But I think where the first two games where the games were close, there was times they were together, there's times they're apart, and then it's tougher for um, the Panthers to match lines against that, right? Because
Yeah.
you never know if they're coming out together or they're not, right?
Yeah.
Um, and to some degree, the Oilers has power play has dried up a little bit here. They had some chances last night they didn't get them. They've been great 4-on-4. So
They've lost the ability to get in front of the net for a greasy goal
yeah, and this is where
on
they
the
miss
power
Hyman.
play.
And this is where they miss Hyman, right? They
Yeah.
really miss Hyman's ability to net front presence on the power play and then score the goal, right? Perry's done an admirable job in filling in, but he's an old guy compared to Hyman and just doesn't have the same touch and finish around the net
No,
anymore.
he's also not as dangerous from the high slot. So
Right.
they can let him sit there at the bumper position a little bit more than Hyman,
Right.
which takes a defenseman away from the front of the net. The other thing that was bothering me about this is Evan Bouchard has like 67 shots on goal in the first three games. I'm exaggerating. It's like 20. I think literally has 24 shots on goal in the series.
Yeah.
You got to start putting some of these in, man. Um,
Well, I guess we said
these are not
again.
shot attempts. These are shots on goal. He's getting them in. He's got to beat Bob.
Yeah, like we said it's again in game two, he buries a couple of those chances in the second period. We're not sitting here. It's 2-1 and going into 2-1 the other way, going into game four.
Yep.
Look at we said this was going to be a long series from the beginning. As long as Edmonton can reset, come back out in game four, play
You need
their
to have
style, play hockey. Forget about the BS after the whistles
yes,
and get back to playing hockey,
and we
then
need
I
good
think
Evander Kane back.
we need good Evander Kane back.
Yeah,
I think we need that. You need Wallman to play hockey. You can't have them chasing around guys. If something doesn't go your way, you got to turn the cheek and just forget about it and play hockey.
yeah,
And they got away from playing hockey
yeah.
in that game.
You know that Darnell Nurse wants nothing more than to put Matthew Tkachuk through the
Oh,
glass.
I think
He
they all
wants it
do. Right?
so bad, but he's
Well,
got
Darnell
to.
Nurse, I think it's actually Kane. Those two have been going at it. To that point, I've said this before. What really bothers me about Kachuk, and yeah, he's a talented player and all that, is that you look at someone like Sam Bennett and even Marchand, who are pests and play with grit and muck it up and be pesty,
And they're on
but
the edge.
but they're on the edge, but they also then stand up when they get attacked by their player, they take it front on. Kachuk is
Yeah,
running behind his own players. He's running. He does something stupid, and then he runs behind the refs. He looks around, waits for the refs to come in. He's doing stupid things.
yeah.
So that bothers me. The other thing, and I would say this, Bennett has done this, is his net front presence. He's purpose like
He's
Yeah, he's
mastered
getting
the
back.
art of making it look like an accident when he falls into the
Absolutely.
goalie or elbows the
Absolutely.
goalie in the head. He's turned it into an art form,
Yeah,
a real art form.
and they got to clean that up. The goalie gets touched. I don't care if they get pushed and stuff like that in front of the net. You've got to be able to control your body and not
Yeah,
fall into the goaltender, the way he has been. So I don't know.
he's gotten away with it for a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
That's to be sure. All
But
right, so should we talk about a couple of other things around the league
yeah,
before
let's
we wrap it
sure,
up?
sure.
All right, so Pete DeBoer fired, gets to the conference finals 2 years in a row
Shocking.
and let go. Was it because of his comments
Shocking.
about Ottinger, pulling Ottinger?
Well, if you listen to Zito's not Zito,
Yeah.
what's his the GM of the
Nil.
Jim Nil, sorry. Nil's conference, he made it sound like in the exit interviews the players had grown tired and weren't happy with DeBoer and the way he handled the team this playoffs. And yeah, look, he made stupid comments. We said this after that game in our last
Yeah.
telecast that he basically called out Ottinger, and it wasn't Ottinger's fault that they lost. The team just
Good
didn't
Lord,
play
no.
well, didn't score, and to call out your number one goaltender like that, you almost saw it coming. But I was still, when it happened,
I was
I sent
pretty
you that note
shocked.
and went, I'm shocked. Like it just it's crazy. I would have loved to have heard being in the room for some of those exit interviews that Jim Nill had with the players because
Oh, yeah.
I think it was in that moment where it was decided that the players had revolted on DeBoer, unfortunately, and the players
Wow.
weren't happy. So now the question for you again, I don't know if you're reading some of the social media posts, like they're talking about trading Robertson, they're talking about trading Marchment, they're talking about potentially different moves that that team
They
can
want some
make to,
flexibility. They want some flexibility. What they would love to do, and there's no way they're going to do it, is to dump Jamie Benn on somebody. Because now Jamie Benn is a decent third line guy making real money.
yeah, but he's the heart and soul of that team. You're not getting rid of him at
You
this
can make it,
point.
you can make that salary slot so much more efficient.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but he's been there for so long. I just don't see how you move on from Jamie Benn. He's the captain. He's the face of the team.
You,
Um,
I think you got lots of guys who can be a captain on that team.
yeah,
They've
true.
got a lot of leaders.
Yeah, true.
Um, uh,
You got new.
yeah, they've got a lot of decisions to make on that team. But look, they are going to be very strong again next year.
Yep.
Um, and then there was another coaching hire that came out of left field.
Which one?
Marco Sturm as the new head coach of the Boston Bruins.
Well, that one was strange. And then in Pittsburgh, David Muse, is that his
Yeah,
name?
yeah, that's
I,
true. Two left field
I was
hires.
like going, who is this dude? Now, not so surprising in Boston because Boston was is notoriously cheap.
Right?
And so going for fresh blood in Sturm and probably being able to pay him sub what the NHL coaching average is probably played into this. Also, he also played with the Bruins. He knows the
Yeah.
franchise, has a relationship there. So yeah, that was surprising, but David Muse or whatever his name is in
Well, I mean, that guy's been he's been thought of as a player development coach, which is clearly
yeah.
Dubas sending a message to the team that this isn't about winning anymore. This is about the next generation.
So why does Crosby want to stick around in Pittsburgh other than retiring? And he's got his 3 cups and he's
He's
done it.
he honestly that probably is it. Is he wants to be a one team guy.
But why
But
wouldn't you want to go and chase one more?
honestly, there was a lot there were rumors about him going to play with Nathan McKinnon in Colorado.
What a
Um, you
story
know,
that would be.
it would be an amazing story. I think it would also be very interesting if um because they have the assets to make it happen, trade him to Montreal.
True.
It
Yeah.
was his boyhood, his favorite
Yeah.
team as a kid. Wouldn't that be a way of going out playing for your your
Yeah,
childhood team,
but in all due respect,
especially a team that's on the rise.
yeah, but
They use a second line center.
yes. And look at it. Crosby playing in Montreal would be a huge story, but he's not winning a cup in Montreal. No
Well,
disrespect to your Montreal Canadiens. They're not winning the cup next year.
not next year, but Crosby's got. I think Crosby thinks he's got 3 years left in himself, and
Possibly,
that's that's the start of Montreal's window.
possibly. Yeah, you think in the next 3 years they can win the cup?
Yes.
I said that 8 years ago when the Leafs got Tavares, and it's it's been 8 years now, and we didn't get a cup.
I think within 3 years, Montreal may not get a cup, but they
Yeah.
will be contending.
Yeah. So again, I thought the same thing for Toronto, and they haven't gotten out of the second round.
Well,
Uh,
it's a different franchise.
yeah, absolutely. I hear you. I hear you. But you also you're hearing all the rumors talking going around the league for a second here that it's all I think it's all but done that Marner is going to be leaving this team. It sounds like there's trying to explore some
Sign and trade
sign
stuff.
and trade or trading his negotiation rights to somebody to one of the teams he's interested in order to
Yeah.
get something back for him. My youngest daughter, Gracie, is going to be heartbroken because he's her favorite player. She loves him, thinks he's
Oh,
cute is her terminology to me. He's cute.
he's cute.
So I said he's all but gone, but
Starting to hear a little buzz about Anaheim.
Anaheim, Vegas, Florida actually could actually be one of these things where Bennett signs in Toronto in off season and Marner signs in
Yeah.
Florida.
And
Um,
that means that Ekblad is gone. Who else is gone? Um, they probably have to shed some other salary,
yeah,
right? Because
Eggbud will be gone, Bennett's
if Bennett
gone.
signs for 8 or 9 and Marner wants 13 or 14,
Oh, it sounded like he's easily going to get the 14, if not more. So
we'll see
Carolina
about that.
seems to be in the mix there for him as well. You're hearing one of the rumors out there is being that the at the trade deadline, it wasn't a straight up Carolina Toronto trade. It was a three-way trade with Vegas that was going to
Yeah,
see Ratnan come to Toronto and Marner go to Vegas. So
Vegas finds a way.
I don't know who would have traded and ended up back in Carolina in that, but
Yeah,
that's interesting. But
Vegas finds a way. I
yeah,
don't know where they find all that money, but they find a way.
yeah,
It's
interesting. So
unreal.
we got lots of the after season, postseason to talk
Yep,
about in terms of some of the movement. Everybody's got a coach now, I think, for next year. I think
yep.
everybody's got a coach, so it'll be interesting to see what happens the remainder of the way. Um, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow night, Thursday night, the extra day off.
The extra day off.
Hopefully it helps. It's sort of odd, the extra day off between game 3 and 4 after getting an extra game off between two and
Yeah,
three, but I'm sure that's a building availability and a TV window thing. So
yep.
um, I'm really hoping. I said this to you in a text the other day. I think I want this as bad for the Oilers as McDavid and Draisaitl want it. I just really want to see the Oilers win. I would like to see those two cement their legacy, especially for McDavid, uh,
Yep.
because he's a special player and love to see it. And I hate the Florida Panthers.
Don't forget that aspect of
I
it.
hate them. I hate them. But let's get my message to the Edmonton Oilers: get back to playing hockey, improve your 5-on-5 play, get the puck out of the zone, get off the boards, play in
Stay
the
out of the box.
stay out of the box. Let's do this. Let's go. Let's go back to Edmonton 2-2. And 6 games is still possible. They could win the next three.
They could win the next three. They could
Yeah.
win the next three. Anyway, look,
Alrighty.
we'll convene on Sunday night to talk about it.
Yes, it's going to be fun. Well, will we convene on Sunday or we're going to wait till
Oh, what
like
is there a
this?
game Sunday night or Monday night?
It's Thursday, Saturday. So yeah, there'll be another 2 games.
Yeah,
So let's do another.
yeah,
We'll probably get together again and be fun to do another telecast before the final couple games.
absolutely.
Alrighty. Well, you have a fun few days. Go Oilers, and I'm gonna go to bed.
You go to bed. You get some sleep.
All right. You have a great night and see you
All
on
right.
Sunday. Talk to
Bye,
you
Phil.
later.